Gary. Wanted to make sure that we have our lovely guest with us. Just want to see, make sure that we're ready. Okay. All right. And in the meantime, in between time, do me a favor and go ahead in the chat and tell me, give me some questions for our guest or any thoughts that you may have about the film. Love to get some one-worders. What are your thoughts right away? And then we'll get into our question and answer with Bella Boss. In the meantime, in between time, just want to remind you all that we have two events happening. Number one, we have our call for work, which is April 12th. So if you know some filmmakers or if you're a filmmaker yourself, please make sure that you start sending us your films to filmfreeway.com and search for Gary Black Film Fest. Number two, you all have a very special announcement to make. We have one more virtual Gary before we go into our programming mode. And I'm very excited to share that our next film that we're going to watch for our virtual Gary is April 27th. That's our Tuesday at 6:30. And we're going to watch my favorite film of all time. Do you all know what that is? I think some of my family members in our screening know, but my favorite film of all time is The Last Dragon. That's right, Michaela's The Last Dragon. So do yourself a favor, get your best outfits. We're going to make it a full cosplay mode. I can't wait till my mom, wink, wink, makes me my seventh heaven dress. Wink, wink. I'm trying to get her to make me a dress, y'all. I've been trying to get her to make me a dress for a while, but now here's motivation, right? We'll see what happens. Got to get my wig, get everything ready. So I just want to give everyone a heads up. April 12th, call for work. April 27th is our virtual Gary, The Last Dragon. We're going to celebrate The Last Dragon. It's been 36 years since The Last Dragon. It's a cult classic, and it's a wonderful way to end our virtual Gary cycle for the year so that we can move into our programming. So let's see where we are. Let's have Bella. Where is our Bella? Where is our Bella? We want Bella. We want Bella. Where is she? Where is she? Anybody got eyes on our beloved guest? It says she's here. And while she's coming up, I would love to go ahead and read her bio for you all. And for our tech, can we have her picture up on the screen so we can take a look at her while I am reading her bio? Very cool, very cool. Just want to make sure we do this right. I only have 2 questions. I know that you all have more questions and thoughts. So I'm waiting for you all to give me some more questions that I can ask. This is a rare opportunity to have an activist in our midst. So come on with the questions. So let me go ahead and read Bella's bio for you so that we can then get right into the conversation. Bella Boss, BAHHS, Black Ancestors Here Healing Society, is a Chicago-based raptivist and revolutionary, nationally known for making sedition irresistible through her art, activism, and advocacy. Born and raised on Chicago's West Side, Boz was thrust into the national spotlight in 2015 when a video of her heartfelt performance at a local march for justice for Laquan McDonald, a teenager killed by Chicago police officer Jason Van Dyke, went viral. In 2016, Boz co-organized the hashtag Let Us Breathe Collective's Freedom Square Occupation, a 45-day occupation of a Chicago secret police precinct in Homan Square, notorious for kidnapping, torturing, and forcing confessions from Black men. Boz joined the Open Society Foundation as a 2017 Soror Justice Fellow. She organized a cohort of arts activists, the Sister Survivor Network. Boz is a founding member of the Decarceration Collective, and since 2016 has worked closely with lead criminal defense attorney Miangel Cody, developing successful freedom campaigns for federal prisoners sentenced to die behind bars for nonviolent drug offenses. Boz is also a founding member and co-chair of the statewide Women's Justice Redefining the Narrative Task Force. So I'm hoping that we have Bella here with us.
I'm here now. I'm here now.
Oh, there you are.
Hey,
Hello. Hello. Welcome.
good evening.
Good evening. Okay, I want to make us in gallery so I can see both of us at the same time. Bella, thank you so much for being here. Thank you for your patience as we get through all of our things. There's going to be lots of wonderful questions in the chat, and we'll get to those in a moment. But can you just tell us, names are really special, and names mean so much. And you named yourself. Can you tell us a little bit about how you came to be, how this name came to be, and just kind of break it down for us and give us some backstory?
Yeah, so Boz, when I first started rapping, I was going by Bella Bars. Not when I first started rapping, I guess. When I first started rapping, I was real young. I was going by like Young B or something. I don't know. But yeah, it came from Bella Bars at first, and it was like a play on rap bars, right? And then as I started to get further and further away from accepting the idea, the notions of bars, of caging people, and got closer and closer to an abolitionist practice and an abolitionist lifestyle, then I wanted to do away with bars in my name. So then I started saying bars because it was like that's how I pronounce it anyway, right? And so the spelling came first for it to be Bella Bars because of the pronunciation. And then my grandmother passed, and then the name, it revealed itself to me what it meant. Or yeah, some some ancestors had some doing in that and telling me what it meant. So I don't even know if I could say I named myself
Mm.
really.
It's beautiful. I think that's so important that when we find our purpose and we find the reason for why we are doing things, that we lead with that, and our names are a way to connect our purpose to the work that we're doing. So that's beautiful that and thank you for sharing that. Um, I mean, you're a lyricist, you are a poet, you're an MC. Listen, I saw this video of you, Chance the Rapper, and Vic Mensa, and I was like, why are those two other people on this song? It should have just been. I think I said that in the comments. I was like, I don't know why Bella's not, where are the people that's listening to women hip hop?
Because you heard me. Because you heard me.
Listen, you brought the heat in that. I wish we could have played that earlier, but I was just like, man, you really came with the words, the lyricism, even in the film, the things that you say the things that people recall and remember, the call and response that you have with your work is wonderful. So,
Thank you.
just talk to us a little bit about your emceeing and your writing. You said that you've been doing it for a long time. So how did that start?
Whew, as a survival strategy, writing has always been a portal for me, um, a way to understand this world and dream of a better one.
Hmm.
Um, so I've been doing that with writing since since I could write. Like I was winning like school wide poetry contests in like second grade. So I've been writing for a very long time. And
Was there
it came in different forms like all throughout my life. I don't know if I've ever stuck to one form of writing for a very long time. Um, Except I guess, yeah, I guess I have stuck to lots of forms of writing for a very long time. It's just I picked them up at different times. So at first I was doing a whole lot of poetry, right? Throughout the film, I think I was doing a lot more rap. Uh, but what were you gonna say?
I was saying, was there a teacher that influenced you to write that really encouraged you?
Books. Books influenced me to write. I really loved reading. I was a really avid reader as a child. My grandmother my chores growing up was like to read the Bible.
Mm.
So that was like how I got allowance. So I enjoyed reading, right? It was beneficial for me my whole life to read. So um, I was always fascinated with just how people wrote stories, told stories. My grandmother was the best storyteller I thought, but she never wrote anything. She didn't have a formal education. She couldn't write, like the stories that she could tell so well. So I didn't want that to ever be the reason that my story wasn't written, that I couldn't do it myself, because I knew she had such a great story that deserved to be written. And yeah, I just refused. So I read so much and had so much admiration for the people who I like, or the way that people could tell their stories and be around for ever through their words. That was really inspiring to me. So
Yeah, I was really struck by so much. You have so much power, and your voice. You're so small. I've seen you in person. Well, I'm 5 feet, so you probably what a little bit taller. We're probably about the same height,
I'm
but
not fat too. I got a couple inches on you.
you know how short people do. They always have to say, "Well, I got like 5'1". I'm 5'2". Yeah.
Look, they be making a little difference.
Okay, we're about the same height. I'll give 5'2" too. I'll say I'm 5'2" as well. But you have so much power, and I was so moved by your story, your family story, and just hearing about your mother and your father and your brother. And then hearing, I wrote down that you said that you're doing this for, you're carrying the load. That's what you said. You're carrying the load. How do you embrace the joy and the self care and the load that you have to carry for your family?
Mm, honestly, truly, I think it is I know that I'm blessed to be here. um, I think of it as an honor to keep carrying forth like all that we carry, even with how heavy it is. Even with how heavy it is. I think that's the self joy, or like that's the self care. It's like recognizing that me being here, me having that burden to carry, me having that load to carry. And I don't want to say burden because I think it's how you think of things impacts you, you know. But all that we have to carry, like it's an honor to be here. I carry all of my former selves with me. Like, yeah, that's heavy. That's a
Mhm.
lot of people. That's a lot of that's a lot of history. I didn't just appear here, you
Right.
know. So I think that heaviness reminds us that it's more than what we see. It's more than what we see. We are more than what we see.
It sounds a little, it has a spiritual undertone, and I'm curious to know, where does spirituality fit within the activist movement?
Oh, um, we're people. Activists, we are people, right? So we all get our fight from somewhere. I think that's the most important thing about Unapologetic to me, is that you don't just see us on the front lines. You don't just see us at protests. And that was a decision made by the director, my friend Ashley O'Shea, that you want to see us as full human beings, right? So where does spirituality or religion, faith, where does that come into activism? It comes into the people, right? Like activism is not a it's I don't it's not like an institution, right? Like it's us. It's us. So we bring to it everything that we are. What we were just talking about, like that we carry so much, right? Like we bring all of that to whatever demonstration we're at, whatever rally we're at, whatever police board meeting we're at. Like we're bringing all of ourselves there. So whatever your spirituality is, you bring that with you. Whatever your faith is, you bring that with you. Whatever your why is, you bring that with you.
Yeah, I'm curious about misconceptions. There's always a comparison. There's a comparison right now between different movements. There's a comparison between the civil rights movement of the 60s and the Black Lives Matter movement that's happening now. What are some misconceptions that you feel people have, community members have, when they think about the current Black Lives Matter movement?
Yeah, I think one thing that Ashley wanted to show, at least with this film, was a counter narrative about who is showing up on the front lines, who is showing up in strategy sessions, who is leading this work. So I think that common misconception was that it's a lot of Black straight head men on the front lines. And they are leading us to liberation. Like, that's who's doing this work. And not to say that those people aren't doing the work as well. But what Ashley showed with Unapologetic is that it's a lot of it's a lot of Black women who are way too often pushed to the margins and told that they are not suited for leadership, who are leading us, who are coming up with the best ways forward. And the resistance to that, right? Like, it's not all kumbaya, right? It's Women's History Month right now, right? And it was just Black History Month, and it was just MLK Day. So we get all these symbolic markers of progress, of uplifting Black women. And that it's still Black women protesting right now next to their abusers. It's still Black women right now getting punched, queer trans Black women getting punched at protests. You know what I'm saying? Like, it's a lot of tension, and it's a lot of strength. It's a lot of unwavering unsatiable thirst for freedom, for liberation. And how that shows up, who that shows up in, like what you bring, like, what you have just stepped out of your community with, carrying to this protest in downtown Chicago, and on the north side of Chicago, right? So what resistance look like? I think that's a big misconception. A lot of people talk about, like, at least since the summer, like, everybody in the Black Lives Matter movement is violent, is looters, and that's not true either, right? Like, the truth is that a lot of the movement that is really pushing things as far as, like, policy and let's stick with policy, right? Like, people who are really pushing policy agendas further that benefit the movement for Black lives, versus people who were looting, or that's not what I want to say, right? Like, that's not the word I want to say. Who were redistributing wealth during the summer, right? So, like, these are two disconnected groups, right? And as a revolutionary, I believe these groups should be connected, right? Like, and I think the misconception is that they are connected, and there's, like, this criminality around that, right? Around what it means if the movement is connected to people who are going to throw a brick in a Gucci store and go in there and take everything they got and go make money for their community, for their family, for themselves, and it's like, the misconception is that we are working hand in hand. It's like, it should be a reality though, right? Like, we really should be, because how revolutionary would that be if we knew that everyone had a role, right? And everyone's role doesn't look the same. But who's to say that Gucci didn't issue their statement in support of Black Lives Matter not because of the people who are pushing policy, but because they want the people to stop throwing bricks in their windows. You know?
Right. Strong points. I'm curious. There's some folks who believe that there should be a single leader in these movements because we don't, the 60s had King and Medgar Evers, and you had just all just single leaders that kind of push the narrative forward. What are your thoughts on that?
I think that that's a false narrative within itself, that there was ever a singular leader. Like Dr. King didn't lead anything. His like Malcolm X existed at the exact same time.
Right.
So just the idea that we've always followed one way, that we've always agreed, and that it's always been one path towards liberation, like that's not true. That's not true. And I think if anything, we are experiencing, like, because we exist in this moment and we see what's going on and we see how many different leaders it is, that should just tell us, like, that's what's been going on. Like, it's not new. We're not the first generation to do this. Like, we should really start to open our eyes about, like, this is how we've been organizing, right? This is, well, now maybe we need to do some things differently, but
yeah,
not new, right? Like, everyone has always had different ideas about which way to go since forever, right? Like, it was people who wanted to poison massa. It was people who wanted to keep quiet and wait it out, right? And pray that it got better, right? Like, everybody had a role.
right. It's something that I also these are the misconceptions, because I think that it's important that we air out the misconceptions so that we can get to the truth. And there's a misconception that from the Black Lives Matter point of view, if you read the definition of what they believe as they center the voices they're centering, they say queer Black women. BYP 100 mentioned the same, queer Black women, trans people. And I know for sure, and I'm saying this because I do know that there are people who are a little squirmish about hearing those words connected to liberation. Do you have any thoughts about, or do you have any opinions about that idea that they should be separate, that it should just be focused on education, or it should be focused on housing, it should be focused on jobs, and not include our personal sexual preference or gender preference into the conversation? What are your thoughts on that?
I think it's absolutely ridiculous that I have to tell someone my sexual preferences. Right? Or like that's a marketable thing. Right? Like that's a fund-worthy thing. It's absolutely ridiculous. But it's necessary because of that uncomfort that people feel, like, just because someone wants to be seen, like, and I'm speaking also for people who don't want to be seen, right? Like, it's at a point now where it's like it's a political statement just to be yourself, like to be openly yourself, like to publicize yourself rather, like, because certain people aren't called to do that, but it's because there is so much oppression of people who are queer, who are trans, who don't fit into certain binaries, that they have to make these announcements, and like, we have to let you know, like, this resistance, this movement, it has to include us because we are here. Because we are here. Like, if we just don't say anything about it and we get to freedom, and we have not freed ourselves from the ideas that we can oppress people because of whatever we decide is a valid enough reason, that's not going to get us anywhere near liberation, right? It's necessary to the conversation because so many people are oppressed and marginalized and silenced and muted, right? People want people just to be quiet about their sexuality when they can be killed because of their sexuality, though.
Mhm.
Right? Like, so it has to be a part of the conversation, because if we just talk about race, right? If we just talk about that, then we get to a place where, okay, you are free to kill any race of people who are don't agree with what you agree with, as far as in terms of what they do in their own and minding their own business. Like I would love if I could just mind my business, people could just mind their business. I don't really like the fact that the film is marketed as Black queer women. Like I don't feel like I want to say all of that all the time. Like I'm showing up because all of this is against all of me, right? I can do every hyphen you want, right? But we got to choose. It's the idea of who gets to choose which ones are important at the time also, right? Like my Blackness is important now. My queerness is important now. What else is important? Like I have formerly incarcerated parents. I have a currently incarcerated brother. You know what I'm saying? Like it's a lot more to me that's I would much rather be the center of the conversation other than you talking about I'm queer. Like, but yeah, okay, let's talk about that too, because look at what these beautiful Black queer people are doing in their communities, right? Like, look at that, right? Like, so that's a heavy question. I feel lots of things about it.
Well, we can shift gears a bit because there's something that came up in the film about generation and intergenerational, that conversation you had with the intergenerational groups. And for an older person, they would say your comment was offensive because you weren't talking about, you said something, I'm paraphrasing, that the reason why the things are the way they are is because we were not passed down information from our elders. So I was curious, our questions. The question is, how do you talk to a generation of people that don't value the wisdom and knowledge that the older generation have and feel that way, and then feel that the younger generation, feel that they need to listen to the older generation? Am I saying that correctly? How do you talk to a generation of people that don't value the wisdom and knowledge that the older generation has given? I guess I'm trying to paraphrase that.
Okay, so the question is, how do I talk to a group, or how do they, like, how do elders talk
Well,
to?
I think that's what's happening. How do you talk to a generation of people that don't value the wisdom and knowledge of the older generation? So, turning it back on you, saying, well, the reason why there's a lot of situations happening where young people are not, where older generations aren't talking to younger generations, it's because the younger generation doesn't value the wisdom and knowledge of the older generation.
Yeah, I feel like we could go back and forth, like, between generations, and say a lot of things about why we don't always have the best communication, um, because there's so much more playing into it than just a generational thing, right? Like I think more than anything is going to be an ideological difference, right? So people, again, we just was saying, people in the same generation have different ideas about which roads to take, which methods to take, which ones to abandon, what to release, what to carry, like in the same generation. So of course, across generations, is going to be differences too. So I think it's a lot of different reasons that we might, but I think the thing that we're gonna have to do is stop generalizing each other, and take it conversation by conversation, because you can't say that our generation just doesn't listen to our elders. That's not true. Like I just said, I was raised by my grandmother, like, and there's a lot of people in my generation who was raised by their grandparents too. So we do, but everybody, all elders don't treat us like grandparents or something, like a lot of people a lot of people in general view Black youth as a problem. And that's in our own community too. So we just have we have a lot of internal work to do in our community. So
Was there any other meetings that happened after that initial meeting that we saw in the film? Was there any others? Do those groups meet again, or have they met prior to the pandemic, I should say?
So what was in the film, that was years ago. Like, I've been a part of several like intergenerational conversations, but not necessarily with that same group. But I think we have conversations often. Like, it'd be a lot of different, contrary to what people believe. Like, the movement today is very intergenerational, right? Like, when people showing up to protest, I'm sure I'm pulling up with my mother, right? Like, me and my mother are showing up to protest together. So we are having conversations, right? Like, so it's happening. It's happening. um I think I think it's a little more difficult now during the pandemic.
Mhm.
That's adding a whole nother barrier between generations, like how we feel about or protect ourselves against the virus.
Mhm. I have one. A lot has happened in the movement and also in Chicago since this film was produced. Nadine is asking, will there be a part two to this film?
I
That's a
don't
good question,
so.
Nadine.
I don't think so. Like, we hope that it inspires lots of more young filmmakers to pick up cameras and document what's going on in the movements and where they are in the movements, right? Like, we don't want, like, we can't do, this was like our coming of age story, right? But we're not trying to be like movie stars or nothing, right? Like, or celebrity activists
Right.
or it was just really important to document this particular time in the movement for Black lives in Chicago. It was a very important time, right? Like, this is history. So it was very important for that, and for like a teaching tool to show people how young people have organized to go up against very powerful structures, demanding justice for our communities. So I think that's the significance of it, not us. So I don't think that she'll be continuing to follow us.
Right.
Also, we didn't really sign up to be filmed for 4 5 years anyway. We didn't know that was what was going on when we first agreed to it anyway. So
So how many years was the film? I thought I read 11 months, but am I wrong in that?
yeah, no, we were filmed from 2000, like the end of 2015 to like 2020.
Oh wow. Wow. That, I mean, it felt like a very full film, but I was like 11, maybe it took her 11 months to truncate it down to what we see. But wow, that's amazing. Someone says, Bella, you inspired us. Exclamation point, exclamation point. Let me read that. You inspired us. So let me get that energy in here. Calling in from Oakland, but originally from Humboldt Park, Chicago. 2 questions. Whatever happened to the grant you applied for, and what are you doing now? And we can talk about the doing now a little later because there's some other doing now questions. And then second, it seems like the elders in the 60s and 70s really taught us about racial solidarity with other races. How can we get multiracial communities to come together in unity? So maybe we'll answer that question, and we can go back to what are you doing now? No, what's up with the grant a little bit later.
Okay, so which question do you want to start with?
The one about the multiracial communities coming together.
Yeah, yeah. So right now is the time for that. Right now. Um, we just we are still, as a nation, grappling with the murders of 6 Asian women in right outside Atlanta.
Mm-hmm.
All right. So we are seeing anti-blackness. um, in its ugliest forms, right? We are seeing that it is expansive, right? It is not confined to African American descendants of African slaves in this country, right? Um, so I think now is the time for all of our communities collectively, right? Like the white community ought to be ashamed of itself, right? Um, you have to hold yourself accountable, right? Like every day you want us to talk about black on black crime and um, every other race of people in ways that make us um, our own problems, right? But white people, like you are consistently raising hateful serial killers. Like we gotta address that. You have to address that. White liberals, that's on y'all, right? Like that's y'all work, right? The Asian community, like we see you, we know all too well the pain, the fear, the of having to suspect every white man you encounter of being a fatal threat to you.
Right.
Um, so I think, yeah, I just read an article about it was a Latino man who survived the shootings. His wife did not. She was bleeding out, dying while he was arrested, detained for 4 hours
Oh,
as a
wow.
suspect.
Mm-hmm.
Like all of our communities. And the name of the sheriff's county was the Cherokee County. Like all of our communities are
Mm-hmm.
being called on right now,
Right.
right? And we don't want to be complicit in this. We don't want to have any parts in this, right? We don't want to say we want our hands clean to this. So what do we have to do in our communities to make sure we're not creating conditions for this to be okay?
Mm-hmm.
Right? Like how are we contributing to a world, to a society in which this is okay? Right? And how do we eradicate that? So we all got work to do. I think it starts with us doing it internally. Like we all got. I can't tell your community what to do with your community because my community ain't got it together. Right? Like we all got work to do. Like
Mm-hmm.
yeah, we got work to do about how we gonna talk to our elders. Right? We got work to do about sexism, about homophobia. We all got this work to do in our respective communities. So let's start there. You know, and then we can meet up on the front lines at the at the next moving for Black Lives protests, because that's where all of us are welcome, right? The most marginalized of us are centered, and that's for a reason. If
Mm-hmm.
you're uncomfortable with that, you're not really ready for liberation yet. So you're gonna have to get comfortable with that. You're gonna have to sit with that, and then meet us on the front lines.
It was something that you mentioned, and I've wanted to ask this question because I think it comes up too, about policy and activists moving into the government and taking on leadership roles. Do you have any thoughts about why we see it, why we don't see enough of it? Um,
I mean, people want to feel like they are purposeful. They are impacting the world in a way that they want to, right? So some people see joining the police force as as in alignment with that, right? Some people see becoming a judge. Some people see becoming a elected official, right? Some people see being a rapper, being a
right.
dancer, being a teacher. So I don't, I don't personally. um, I don't know that I'm gonna say like that. You said like if we don't see enough of it. I don't know that I think we don't see enough of it. Um,
Mm-hmm.
but because I don't know that it hasn't proven itself yet to be a effective strategy. Um,
Mm-hmm.
like we have Black police officers, we have Black judges, we have Black wardens. We have had a Black president, right? Like that just doesn't seem to be the most effective strategy, is getting Black people into certain positions in government, in the system. But like I said, everybody see themselves as fitting into this world, into this society in a certain way, and they trying to figure that out. We all trying to figure that out. I ain't really here to judge nobody else's decision. I just can say what I what I think.
Right. So Michaela says it's empowering to see how you all are coalesced in different groups and work to strengthen each other. What lessons from past movements have you learned to veer away from? Which lessons from the past have you decided to improve upon?
Mm. Which lessons have we learned to veer away from? Which lessons have we learned to improve upon? Well, yeah, we definitely veered away from the idea that we needed um, a singular male to be the voice of the Black community and move us in a particular direction. We veered away from that we needed this. We needed to maintain the facade that there is one leader, and there's one way to go about things. So we veered away from that. What are we building upon? All of it. All of it. We stand on the shoulders of all of it. So the shortcomings, right? The ambitions, the aspirations, like we have all of the world's history, right? To learn from, to grow from. So I think we have a lot. I see us repeating a lot of the same lessons.
Mm-hmm.
But I have to think like I haven't even been on this earth 30 years, right? So for me to say like how long something is or how long we've been doing something is really just relative, you know. I don't know how long it's going to take us to till we don't have sexism in our own communities, right? Until we completely rid ourselves of the idea of patriarchy, the idea of the closer you are to whiteness, the better you are, or colorism, like all these different isms that we fight within our own communities. It seems like we've been fighting them for a very long time, and we have so much to learn from in recent history, right? Like, and we keep seeing the same things over and over again. But like I said, I'm only so young, and the world is only so young. So it's like relative. Maybe we're learning at alarmingly fast speeds, and I just I just can't perceive it as such, I don't know. I know we have a lot further to go. So I think, yeah, we're building upon all of it.
How do the organizations in Chicago come together? So how are they collaborating? Let Us Breathe, BYP 100. Um, there's a lot of them. I had a list and then my scribbles.
There's a lot, and there's more growing all the time, right? Like a lot of young people on college campuses, a lot of young people just in their neighborhoods, in their art groups, in their recreational activity, whatever they do together, like they are becoming group, right? Like skate groups are being politicized, and sipping paint groups, are being politicized. So people are really just invested in learning more about the movement and different entryways to it, so it doesn't look like it used to look, right? Like it being necessarily like everyone has a political home. I think right now a lot of people don't have political homes, really. But a lot of people are seeking out knowledge and maybe they are following their favorite revolutionary thinker, on Instagram or on Twitter, and they're clicking links and they're swiping up and they're finding out new things all the time, and that's how they're becoming becoming active in a movement, right? So
Right.
it looks so different right now. It looks so different right now. At the time that this film was documented, it was so many young Black people in the city, um, who were just really activated by like the Ferguson movement, right? Like we had a bunch of Chicago artists going to Ferguson, taking them supplies and stuff, and then their experiences coming back and permeating like the open mic scene, right? And then it becomes like you're inspiring people, right? Like even if it's just like the poems that they write, or it's okay, we all gonna go to this protest, like we all gonna donate to these people on the front lines of Ferguson, right? Like it was like uh uh, uh like it was almost like a rites of passage. At this time in Chicago, like as a young Black person, being you were being introduced to the movement, and you were moved by it, you were inspired by it, you wanted to contribute to it. So a lot of these groups started like at the same time, right? And again, like that idea that it's this central good. Now BYP 100 started, and um Black Lives Matter Chicago, and Asada's Daughters, and Let Us Breathe Collective, and like all these groups were popping up and saying like, yeah, we think this is wrong too, and we're going to address it this way.
Right. Which I think is amazing, and I think it's important that I always say that there should be more art spaces, more, more places to create. And because the more spaces you have, the more opportunities people are able to work and to get paid to work, to be an artist. So I feel the same way with these types of groups, with groups that are activist groups, or, you know, any way to kind of create the community that you want to see. I think that's very important. So I'm getting a lot of wise words from you. You have this is for you, Bella, that people are saying in the chats that you have wise words, and they're learning more about the movement, and it gives you that gives them a clearer understanding of what's really going on and what it's about. As an elder, I appreciate the depth and understanding that this movement has. So I just want to give you some kudos and props. And then finally, before we wrap up, I just want to ask you kind of where we are now. Are you, do you have your poetry published? And where does this say? Yeah, where can we find your work? Do you have work that we can purchase? Um, all the good stuff that's happening for you right now. Where are you organizing? How are you staying joyful?
Oh, I love that question. I love that. So if people who want to know where they can purchase things, I'm about to release. Y'all might be the first people I'm telling this. Yeah, I think y'all are. I'm about to release a virtual concert.
Oh, wonderful.
So that will be available for purchase, and like downloadable audio files of like the individual songs, the live versions. So you could do that very soon. I don't have a date yet, but you can follow me on social media, wherever you prefer. I prefer Instagram, though I haven't been on there lately, but you can follow me at Bella Boss. Again, Boss is BAHHS, and that's Black Ancestors Here Healing Society. But yeah, so Bella Boss on all social media accounts. You can listen to the biggest catalog of my music on SoundCloud, and
Mhm.
that's Bella Boss too. So it got like songs from like when I was in college. I released the EP, and all that's on there, but also on like Spotify and Tidal and stuff. You can follow me on all those. And I got a couple new songs that have been released there, and I'll be releasing more. So that's really what I'm doing right now, is focusing on my art, my music, poetry, and that took a lot. That took a lot to say, like, this is how I've always resisted. And though there's cause for us to do so much because there's so much to be done, me learning that, like, I don't have to put myself in harm's way. I don't have to give my body in this way. Like, I can give my joy. I can give my joy. I can give my love. I can give my passion. Yeah, that's something we didn't really get to talk about here, but like, most of that filming, like, I was depressed, right? Like, I was on the front lines. Like, that's what I was carrying with me. My grandmother had just passed, Black Ancestors Here Healing Society, right? My grandmother had just passed right before we started filming, or shortly before we started filming. So I was dealing with all of that, and I took it to the front lines. Like, me fighting my depression was also fighting for my people, fighting for what we all struggled through. So yeah. Yeah, I'm in a different space right now, focusing on art. So I'm happy that y'all are like, where's the art? Where can we find that? Because that's what I want to give y'all.
I also saw you in the film. So you're acting, doing some acting.
Yeah, what you saw me in?
It was a short film.
Oh, The Morning After, yeah.
Right.
Yeah,
Right.
yeah. Yes. I hope to do a lot more acting. If anyone on here happens to have any connection to Sister Soldier, Jada Pinkett, one of them who gonna make her books into a movie, tell them, holler at me.
The perfect connection. I see that. Now that you said that, I'm like, oh, that's perfect. That's the perfect person for you.
Yeah, so I even started calling myself a raptivist because of Sister Soldier, right? Like, she was one of those people I read and had a love for language for.
Right. Well, Bella, thank you so much. Thank you for your time and just your grace and your understanding. We really appreciate you coming in to talk to us and give us some insight. I really want to ask us some more questions about Lori Lightfoot and that whole section, but I know that we have to go.
Yeah,
So
we be all night.
talk about it on our Facebook page. So you can all go to our Facebook page if you have not done so and like the Gary Black Film Festival. Just want to remind everyone that we are having another virtual Gary of Joy. My favorite film of all times is The Last Dragon. I know you've seen that film, right, Bella?
I have not. I'm sorry. I'm gonna see it. I'm gonna see it right now. I'm sorry. I have not.
On April 27th with the film festival because it is a cult classic and it is just it's the perfect film of hero and villain, of love. And
I already determined that I was going to watch it when I heard you talking about it in the beginning. Yeah. I was hoping you weren't gonna call me out and ask me.
I always like to indoctrinate people into The Last Dragon because I do it with my nieces and everybody else, so they love it too. And then finally, our call to work, which is April 12th. So your friend that made that film, maybe she would be interested in sending it to our film festival so that you can be in our film festival, and then we can call you back as an artist in the film. Yeah. Keep that in mind for the next time. But April 12th is our open call, and we're just so thankful. So Bella, we can find Bella in Instagram, Bella Boz, on any sort of social platforms, and you all can find us at the Gary International Black Film Festival on social media on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, we're everywhere. All right. So I'm gonna hold you to it, Bella. You gotta come on and tell us a little bit more about Lori Lightfoot when we have that section on our fan page on the Gary Film Festival. A lot of folks don't know about Lori Lightfoot because they're not from the city. They're not from Chicago, but I'm sure folks have heard, So we'll talk more about that soon. Thank you all for being here this evening. Thank you, Bella. Thank you to our sponsors. Let me just read those off to you one more time just to make sure that we have those recorded and in our midst and in our world. So thank you to our, okay, I'm gonna get this, but Ashley O'Shea and Bella Boz, Array, Legacy Foundation, Knight Foundation, Urban League of Northwest Indiana, Indiana University Northwest Office of Diversity, Equity, and Minority Affairs, Quad J Creatives, LLC, Trainer Digital Strategies, the City of Gary, the audience, and to Cartinquin. I'm trying to get this word. I don't know why I can't say Cartinquin. I think that's how you say it. It's the film that this the organization that produced the film. So we just want to thank our staff and our media, public relations, and technical specialists. Thank you all. That was our virtual Gary for the evening. You all have a good